why I did try for traditional publishing again was because Seven Daughters got so big. Like, who writes a book with 7 main characters, friend? Like, who does that and on purpose? Like,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that was one of the reasons why I definitely wanted to try for traditional publishing again, even though in the back of my mind, as I was on the journey querying agents and then going on submission to editors, in the back of my mind was like, if this never works, if it doesn't sell, I can always do it myself. But I wanted what traditional publishing could give me because I knew this book needed a team.
Welcome to this episode of Author Interviews with Jazz and Prose. Tonight's special guest is Nikesha Elise Williams. She's a journalist, 2-time Emmy Award winner. She has written several books. Here today, she's going to be talking about this amazing book right here, The Seven Daughters of Dupree, which came out this year, 2026. She's also written other books, For Women, Beyond Bourbon Street, Mardi Gras Indians, okay? When I found out about The Seven Daughters of Dupree, I immediately became intrigued. I was like, oh my God, this is a multi-generational novel of women in America, starting with Tati in 1995. It's around her birthday time, and she wants to find out who her father is, okay? But then it also goes all the way back, okay, so 7 generations into slavery, okay? And if you've read the book, you know that it starts off with a banger. So I had to get her here. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get started with this interview with Nikesha Elise Williams for The Seven Daughters of Dupree. Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Author Interviews with Jazz and Prose. I'm your host, Sai, and today we're here with the lovely Nikesha Elise Williams. She's going to be talking about one of her books, because she's written many, The Seven Daughters of Dupree. Miss Williams, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
But I'm good. I'm really excited. I've been taking so many notes for this interview. Okay, I did so much research. So I'm going to try to, stay on task here because it was just so intriguing reading this book, the topics. It was so great. So I guess we'll start because y'all know I usually start with the covers. Okay, so I love this cover here. Okay, so let me go ahead to this slide. If you want to go ahead and tell us, how did you come up with the cover for The Seven Daughters of Dupree?
So I actually had very little to do with it. So the publisher, the graphic designer and the artist with the publisher, they had come up with 2 concepts. One concept was like green and like this big tree, like the foreground of the photo with like these big knotty roots. And then in the background, it was like a red house. And I was like, no, not that one. Cause like, why is the house red? But then it was this one. And this was almost the final cover, but it was just the background image and the title. It didn't have the woman walking down the road and it didn't have the birds flying in the air. It was just like this idyllic farmhouse scene, which I think is what the painting is called. It's the painting by the artist Jim Musil. He's on Instagram, and I think someone told me he's teaching classes about how to paint this picture and paint the cover or whatever. I don't know, whatever. But it's his painting. It was called The Farmhouse, and they sent it to me with just the title, and I was like, I loved it because I love bright colors. But I was like, it's Southern, but there's no soul in this image. And I had lots of questions about options and possibilities for the cover of what they could try. And I got pushed back on all of that. I was like, no, it's one of these. And so I was like, okay, well, if it has to be this one, can we put the character Gladys on the road? Because this is like my vision in my head from that scene in chapter 18 where she's walking down the dirt road on her way to church. And so they was like, well, we'll see, they may not like to do that because it's a painting and and all these things. And I think on the Simon and Schuster page, when they have interviewed some of the professionals in the company, they interviewed the head of graphic design and legal or whatever, and she talked about getting this cover cleared for me for this book, I'm so grateful to her. But they went back and they were able to put the woman on the road who was Gladys and give me some birds flying in the air. That was my editor. She's like, I'll give you some birds. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'll take the birds. And so when they came back with the woman and the birds, I was like, I think this is it. It's just like the scenery is so stunning, but it needed more. And because this is
Yeah.
a scene from the book, I thought it was perfect. And I think it also, it makes you want to know who she is, where she's going, what's happening with her. And then it
Yeah.
also solves for, you don't necessarily have a specific color face on the front. So
Mhm.
anybody can relate to this image.
Yeah. Yes. All that. I love that. And that's why I like to start with these questions, because I do believe that people always say you can't judge a book by its
You
cover, but
absolutely can.
and you
And even
people
if you shouldn't,
do.
you absolutely do.
Yes, some people literally buy books just because they like the cover. Literally, that so. But I do. Did you ever ask the lady what was the significance of the birds? Like, why did she feel like I'm okay? Because for me, I'm always like trying to make something, meaning
I
to something.
never,
But
I don't know
yeah,
why my editor wanted the birds. Like I never asked Allison, so why did you suggest birds? Like I never asked her. But what's so funny is you see like there's a cluster and then there's two off to the side. And so we like to say like that those two are Tati and Nadia breaking the generational curses or whatever.
I love that. I love it. I love that. I love that. Yes, and there's so many themes in this book, but I love this. Absolutely love this cover. Before we jump into this amazing novel, tell the listeners out there a little bit about yourself and like how you got started with writing.
Oh God. I think I've always wanted to be a writer. I think I shouldn't say I think I knew I always wanted to be a writer. I started reading very young, and I think once you are an early reader, you read enough that you want to try it yourself. And so I did, and I liked it, and I kept going. And wanting to be something and knowing how to become that are two different things. And so the first thing that always clicked for me was journalism. I remember being little, and we would get the Chicago Tribune, I think it was, had like a kids news section that like I would take out and I would read the stories about young kids and in the neighborhood or in the city and stuff. And so I knew journalism was always around. And so that's what I ended up studying in undergrad, along with writing. I had a dual major in English and journalism or whatever. And my first job was in television as a television news producer because I took the mass media route. And so I working as a local television producer. I worked at 4 stations in 3 markets over the course of 11 years. You're writing every day because you're writing the scripts. But at the same time that I was writing for my job, I would then have like little side projects and side quests that I would do at home. There was a project that I did in letters for a year. There was a blog that I maintained for like 2.5 years. And then after that, I started writing what became my first self-published novel. And that was around 2013. Yeah. And from then I've just been writing book after book after book after book pretty consistently since then.
Yeah, and I saw that when I was doing my research, and I was like, oh, first of all, oh my God, um, you've accomplished so many amazing things. Okay, not to mention the 2 Emmys. Okay, working in television, being in the Washington Post, Essence, The Vox, The Bitter Southern, like a lot. Okay, and I know I've watched some of the other interviews, and a lot of people think this is your debut novel, but it's not. Like, you've had other books, and some of those, like when I'm looking here, I'm from New Orleans, so when I saw,
Really?
yes, I am. So
Okay.
that's what I was like, oh my God, because I know you have roots there. And when I saw the Mardi Gras Indians, I remember my dad taking us, down there looking at all, and he knew like the chiefs and all those people. And then the other book you have is Beyond Bourbon Street, right?
Yeah.
So I cannot wait to read those, because I was like, wait a minute. Oh my God. So I'm excited. I'm so glad that I found you. Social media is amazing. Social media really works, So writing has always been a part of your, and I'm glad. So that must mean that your parents really promoted literacy.
My mother is a teacher, and so yes,
Yeah.
is the answer to that question. My mother is a teacher,
Yeah.
and yes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I used to also remember getting the newspaper as well and looking at the funnies and all that stuff. So yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this amazing novel, The Seven Daughters of Dupree. I want you, I have questions, but I'm going to let you go ahead and kind of, I want to know you, how did Tati's story come to you?
Oh, okay. So everything started with Tati.
Mhm,
There were a couple of things I think that were happening around the same time.
okay.
Um, I had a random thought one day that it inspired not this title, but the working title that I was working with, and
Mhm,
so like that happened and informed the hair portion of the story and why Nadia is a beautician. But I think honestly, I wanted to write a story about a girl who didn't know her father as a way for me to explore my own complex relationship with my father. And so it started, that's how Tati started. Like she doesn't know her dad. And I thought it was going to be a very simple story. She doesn't know him, and in the end, she finds him. And technically,
mhm,
that does still happen. So,
mhm.
like, I didn't lose that plot. It just grew.
Right. Yeah.
But it started there, and I initially thought that this book was going to be completely from Tati's perspective, following her from the ages of 14 to 19 and
Mhm,
going through her life through from 8th grade to her first year of college on this quest to
okay.
find her dad and all the hijinks and shenanigans that she would get into. And as I started trying to write that version of the novel, as much as I liked her as a character, she was not enough to sustain the entire book. Like I got bored with her. I'm like, okay, girl,
Mhm,
this
mhm,
is
mhm.
we're doing the most and not doing anything at all.
Right.
Right? And so I brought her up to the same point of view in my first draft, that same breaking point that's in the final book where part one ends, where she learns her father's name after her homecoming dance. And I brought it up to that point in the first draft. And then I started the next section and jumped into her mother's perspective, and
Right.
wrote Nadia and the father and how they met each other and what their story was. And then once I got that all completed, um, I jumped back into Tati and brought the resolution that ends on that New Year's Eve. And that was really the first
Mhm.
draft. And that's really how it started.
Okay. Okay. And for those of you who are not familiar with the book, there are seven. I had to put this. There's seven. Okay. And
With an
when
honorary
I,
A.
yes, 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 yes. I mean, and a lot of people might think like, oh, this is a lot, but as a writer, and I think as a person, in America, writing the great American novel, do you feel as though you had a responsibility to touch, like, did you always know it was going to be a historical fiction though? Like, did you go back to slavery and no?
The,
Okay.
it did not become historical fiction until um, I found the enslaved ancestor. And the reason why that even happened, and I will always give credit to my good friend and fellow author, Disha Philia. I was
Mhm.
listening to her on a podcast talking about a workshop that she teaches about writing your best first line. And listening to her talk about that workshop that she teaches, I then asked myself, well, what would be my best first line? And that's where the first line from the prologue came from. And as soon as I got that first line, I knew it was the same story, the same novel I've been working on, where I already had a
Mhm.
completed first draft, technically. I
Mhm.
knew I was going to have to go back to enslavement. I knew what that enslaved ancestor's ending was going to be in one line. Like I had an entire novel in one line. And
Wow.
so um, and I already had Tati and Nadia, and Gladys was always there,
Mhm.
even though she didn't have her own perspective in the first draft. She was always
Mhm.
there in the salon with the one-liners, with the barbs. That Thanksgiving scene where she says, "What do you think happens to light-skinned women in the South?" was always there. She was always
Yeah.
in the background saying and doing just enough to make me curious about her story, but not enough for me to have explored it in that first draft until I realized it had to go even beyond her. And so knowing that
Yeah.
I was going to go back to slavery and enslavement and touch on the antebellum South and all of that, I only wanted to go so far. At the time, I was obsessed with the stories of the Clotilda slave ship. I had written a long form essay for the Bitter Southerner about two historic sites where I live, Kingsley Plantation and American Beach, and how they're connected. So all of that history was kind of in my mind. I'm also a really big history nerd. Like I love a good history
Yeah.
documentary or history book. Like I'm your girl, right? And I love
Yeah.
historical fiction too. And so, in knowing that I was going back to enslavement and I already had three characters in the front half of the book that were more contemporary, present day, I then just had to fill the blanks. And so it was like, well, what are your names? That's the first question that I asked. Who are you? And even before I asked that question, I was like, if I'm going to go back to enslavement, I know I only want to go back to 1860, referencing the Clotilda. And then, my mind went biblical. I'm a church girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, 7 is the number of completion. We'll do 7 women, 7 generations. So that's where the 7 came from. And then it was like, okay, so I have 4 with Tati,
Mm-hmm.
Nadia, Gladys, and the enslaved ancestor. Who are these other 3? What are your names? What are your issues? And then I just began to piece and build them out like that. And once I knew I had them, like their names and stuff, then I started to hear them. I could hear them talking to me. I saw
Right.
Gladys walking down the road. And so they were very present with me in the writing of the novel.
Yeah. And listen, when I read the synopsis, I was like, I know you lying. What? I have been wanting to read something like this, that really embodies all of these themes. I mean, you did your thing with this, Miss Williams.
Thank you.
Okay, like you did. I loved it. And I think as a Black woman, you touched on a lot of themes that I think a lot of people can relate to, as far as, even having, part of the setting in a beauty shop with hair, and tying that into, and how hair, brings people together. And then the beauty shop is usually the place where I interviewed another author. She's a beautician, but she's also a hairstylist. And I'm like, well, you're kind of like a therapist too, because I know when clients sit in the chair, they're, telling you their problems and doing all this and encouraging hope. And there's so many things in here. The things of matriarchs, the things of survival, of, of course, generational trauma, or my notes at right here, and then we have resilient survival, all of that. And I was just like, I wanted to know more and more, like, is there going to be a part 2?
No.
Okay.
The book is done. Like the daughters have gone on their way.
Yeah,
living their lives out in the world. At least Tati and Nadia are.
And I'm not spoiling anything, but I love the ending. I'm not spoiling it, guys. You're gonna have to read it, but listen, I'm not gonna go into detail, but I was like, wow. Wow, what is happening here? I was just so pleased with reading this. And then I thought, okay, where is it at? Because I wrote it here. Navigating the human experience through societal expectations and structures. Okay. That is what I thought about, because, if you're going to go back through these settings and time periods, you have to think about what was it like for these women. So like when building your characters, how do you organize that? Like, did you go into, okay, this is during slavery, what was happening to them? What type of situations would they be in, versus Tati, who's like kind of present day a little bit and, going to college? Like, how long did it take you to like map all that out?
So like I wrote the first draft and like with just Tati and Nadia's perspectives in like 2.5 months. And then I thought for like 6 months. And then I wrote what became the second draft. And that's the version that, got me my agent and eventually got my deal. I wrote that draft in about 5 months. So, it was over the course of like 1.5 years, but the actual writing of it, like I think a lot. I do a lot of thinking before I start writing. And so like the 6 months that I was ideating between the first draft and the second draft was when all of that, thinking about the timelines, the issues that I wanted to touch on, what I wanted to do. But like I'm not a super heavy outliner. Like I do outline to the extent that I try to know what's going to happen in the arc of a character's story. So it'll be like, just I call it like a what happens next. So like if the chapter one is this, then this happens next, and this happens next, and this happens next. And I'll do that all the way to the end. But what actually happens in the chapter to get to that next sometimes changes. Or I'll write something and then it has to change the what happens next sometimes. It depends on how locked in I am. So when I got the expanded version and you talked about like, systems and structures, I think the systems and the structures that I was thinking of specifically were marriage and motherhood in terms of societal structures. And I know people talk about it as generational trauma or generational curses. Even as secrets, that wasn't what I was going with. I did not have that language at the time. I was thinking about each of their stories as turning points. What was something that happened in their lives that changed who they were entirely? Where as a reader, you see a distinct character break from who they are when you meet them as younger girls or teenagers or young adult women, and then who you see them as grown women, right? And so from my own personal experience, and then being, a Black woman, a girl's girl with my friends, I feel like all of our major life changes, yes, but then also times where we are very different in how we present to each other, in terms of personality, surround who we partner with, whether that's marriage or not, and whether or not we decide to mother. And so that's what I'm really playing with. And so it may come off as like these generational curses or trauma, but I'm playing with these turning points in these women's lives.
Yeah. And that takes the guys, I always say that writing is easy for everyone except for writers, right? Because,
Writing is hard.
It's hard,
Writing is hard.
but it's cathartic. I think when you talked about the first line, and as a teacher, I always tell my students, and they're so like, it's like an aha moment when I'm like, guys, even though when we're writing an essay and you're good with hooks, I had that written here and highlighted, good with hooks with an explanation. I read some of your articles and stuff. And I tell them like, so my question is going to be, did you know that first line? But I always tell them like, you don't always start with the intro paragraph. Like sometimes that's like the icing on the cake, right? But your open line was like, oh, wow. And this is why I said I have to get the physical, because I listen to the audio, guys. And if you listen to the audio, you have to go get the actual physical too, because this is like, it's a lot. And I need to spend more. I need to read it with my voice now, and make my notes and annotations and stuff like that. But your opening line, now I know you say you had the whole book in that opening line, but you didn't start with that though, right?
Not initially, no. From the original first draft, I think the prologue, there was always a prologue, but I think the prologue was Nadia's note and was the line, how do you carry a child in fear? Step one, it starts with him not being here. I think that was the original opening in the first draft. And then it was like that note, and then it went into chapter one where Tati's going down in the basement. But with the current prologue, I wrote that. First of all, I wrote it in my phone because, like, I know I'm listening to Disha on the podcast. The line comes to me, and then I'm typing the prologue in my phone. But I have a video on my Instagram page where I take people through my actual outline. I have it posted or whatever. And there are 3 different versions of the prologue. And it's the last version that was in my notes app was the one that I eventually used. So it took me a while to shape it, but I think, and I hope what I've done as an author, as a writer, is that when you read that paragraph of that prologue, if you only have the minute or 2 that it takes you to read it when you're standing in the bookstore deciding whether or not you're going to buy the book, you read that prologue and you know exactly and everything what we're, for the most part, what we're going to deal with. You know where we're going. Like
Yeah.
you know from word one, sentence one, where I'm going, I hope. And if you
Yeah.
don't, by the end of the prologue, I hope that you get a sense that it's a journey that we're about to go on together.
Yeah. 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 And that opening line plus the cover, that's it. Check me out. Take it to the register. Check me out. Like, it's so good. I love that. And then, because I already know this, are you open to it being turned into a movie?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a visual person. I worked in television for 11 years. I was a producer.
Yes.
As a local television producer, you are writing to video. You are writing scripts for your anchors to match
Yeah.
the videos and the pictures and the images on the screen. When I'm
Yeah.
writing, I generally see it as like a movie in my head, which is why I can see the scenes and I can hear the dialogue. I absolutely would love the adaptation treatment. I don't necessarily want it to be a movie. I prefer it to be a series so that we don't lose any of the nuance of each daughter's story and may have more
Yeah.
time to expand upon what's in the book, because there are definitely chapters that did not make the final. But yeah, I would definitely love like an 8-episode miniseries.
Oh my God. Listen, I'm tuned in. Whenever that is there, I think, yeah. And then, because sometimes people, they watch a movie, then they go get the book either, and they're like, no, you got to read the book. The book is, so it's amazing. And you went, because you started off, like I said, did my research. You started off with self-publishing, and then you went to traditional publishing. And you said it was like a natural progression, starting from, that, and the big five. What advice would you give to people who are trying to make that transition into, they start off with self-publishing, now they want to get traditionally published? Because I know it's pros and cons to both. So what would you tell people that want to do that?
There are no guarantees in publishing, period, whether you are self-published or whether you are traditionally published. And when you get into traditional publishing, you have to realize that it is a business. It is a corporation. It is a very big business. Money is being exchanged for a product. And you as the author are to produce that product. And you as the author then become the brand of that product.
Right. That's good.
I have 8 books. I'm still Nikesha Elise Williams.
Yeah.
So when you enter into traditional publishing, while we all, and I include myself in this because this is what I wanted since 2013, if not before, while we all may want the major book deals and the multi-city book tours and the standing room only crowds of people holding your book in the Instagram video, the work of the writing must come first. And so to anyone who wants to do this at any level, craft must come first. You have to work on your craft. You cannot guarantee that you are going to get a major book deal with a major publisher. You can't guarantee that even if you do get a book deal with a publisher, that you won't be a mid-list author or author who has their book released in December, even though it's not a holiday book, right? So it's all about understanding the why that you write, the why of a writing. Like, why are you showing up to the page? It can't just be about getting the deal and making money, because sometimes not even a lot of money to be made.
Yeah. So you have to have that passion.
Yes.
You have to have that passion. Yeah. That's real information. Because I think now, being that anybody can, typically publish a book, I think a lot of people don't have that mindset that it's a business. They're like, oh, I wrote the book, but they're writing the book versus actually selling the book is like 2 different things, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, so we talked about that. Got the advice. It is actually time for our trivia. We do a little bit of trivia, Miss Nikesha. Just so, yeah, we do. So So it's like the author edition of Would You Rather. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna have you pick a number from 1 to 4.
4.
4. Okay. Y'all know usually people pick 3. Let's see. What do I have for 4? Oh wait, here it is right here. Okay. So would you rather lose the last chapter of your book or the first 3?
Like, and then have to write them over again?
Yeah, like you lost it, you didn't save it on a floppy disk, like it's gone. You gotta start
This
over.
actually happened to me, and I lost much more than just 1 or 3 chapters. So I'm gonna say I would rather lose the last one.
Okay, the last one. Okay, versus the first 3. Okay, why you say that? You feel like it's easier to rewrite
Because
that?
at that point, because of what I have experienced, neither one of these scenarios is really all that bad. But if you lose, like if you lose the last chapter, you can rewrite the last chapter. It's not going to take that long. Like it might take you a couple of days. If you're really gung ho about it, it might take you a couple of hours, how long it is, depending on what kind of time you have. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I like that. And I already asked you because that was one of my big questions if you wanted to make it into a movie, but you said a series. I love that idea. So yeah, series, but any other books that you're thinking of? I mean, I know you probably have a lot in your notebook ideas, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I mean, I have 2 projects that I think have legs. One, I am in the active drafting phase. I'm on the second draft. I'm almost at the halfway point. It's a mess. This book is kicking my behind.
Yeah, that's how it should be good.
It may perhaps, but it is different. It is really kicking my butt, testing my confidence for sure.
Okay.
And I don't know what to do with it. Like, I think there's a solution that I don't want to do. So pray for me. And then and so with what I'm working on now, it's coming together. The second draft feels like a first draft because of how I had to pull things out and start basically from square one again. But it's so damn big in scope. Not the same amount of time, because like I know the Seven Daughters of Dupree covers 163 years, whereas the one I'm working on now only covers 1 year. But I'm going month to month with all of these different characters who come in and out of each other's lives, and some of them have backstories from my self-published work, and some of them are completely new. And so yeah, they are kicking my ass.
Yeah, it sounds like you like a challenge though. It sounds like you like a challenge. That's good though.
But part of it is that I do like a challenge. Like when self-publishing was me finding my voice in real time and honing my craft at that level and trying to figure out what it was I wanted to say on the page through my work. I think there's always an underlying message behind the entertainment value of the story. And so now that I have figured that out for the most part, the words are flowing. It's just making sure that it's in service to the novel and that it works. And so
I get it. I get it. Okay, really quick. This is the last thing I'm in on this. That I was so amazed because you got to interview Alice Walker, The Color Purple. So how was that? I just want to know how that was. Really quick.
I interviewed Alice Walker in February of 2019, and if you've read the article, you know she almost hung up the phone on me.
I guess
she almost hung up the phone on me, and my phone clicked off on her. It was one of the first freelance pieces I ever wrote. I was nervous. I mean, in the article, I tell you, like, I'm nervous and she was asleep. Like, that's how it starts. Trying to bring the reader into that 20-30-minute conversation. But basically, I live in Florida, in Jacksonville. And so Eatonville, where Zora Neale Hurston was born and raised, is about 90 minutes from here. It's right outside of Orlando. And so every year there is a Zora Neale Hurston festival in Eatonville. And so that particular year, she, I believe, was the keynote speaker. And so there was a local magazine that had gotten her team to agree to an interview. They had reached out to me. The editor of the magazine reached out to me and said, "Do you want to do the interview?" And I was like, "Absolutely." It's Alice Walker.
Yeah.
I was planning to leave television at that time anyway. I left television in August of 2019. The interview was in February. So I was trying to build up my freelance writing credits so I would have like work when I left my career or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so they gave me her hotel room number. I couldn't figure out how to make to this 2019. So the iPhones didn't do all the stuff that they do now. So back then you could not record while you were in a phone call on your iPhone. So I call and then I start this like recording app that I found. And as soon as I started the app, the call cut off. So then I had to call back to her hotel room where she was asleep. She still did the interview. She chastised me a little bit for one of my questions. But in the end, we finished the interview. I made her laugh briefly. And then I remember before it published, or right after it, like, I remember after it was over, her team reached out to the editors because they wanted to read it before it published. And I remember the feedback was like they were surprised that it was written so well, something like that. Because I guess they didn't have the confidence that I knew what I was doing. It's fine. I take no offense. I think they had like 2 notes that I spelled Sophia's name wrong from The Color Purple. I think I spelled it with a PH instead of FIA. And then I had it written like Sophia, like it is in the movie. Yeah. And they were like, why did she say it 3 times? But those were the only notes. So that's my Alice Walker story.
Yes, I had to cover that because I was like, oh my God, this is like, and I feel like this book right here, we can make a text-to-text connection. I just feel like it's such a classic novel, guys.
Thank you.
It's a classic. It is a classic. I love it. And they can get it anywhere. Just Google it, guys. You get it anywhere. Barnes & Noble, Audible. I listened to the audiobook. It was good. I'm not gonna lie. Usually with audiobooks, I don't do well. I'm more of a book girly. I gotta see it. But the lady who narrated it was really good. Shout out to her.
Shout out to Bonnie Turpin.
Yes, it was great. And I loved it. And I'm definitely have to go get the physical copy because that's how my brain works. I have to read it so I can see it and do all of that. So I definitely thank you. We thank you, Miss Nikesha Elise Williams. Am I pronouncing your name right? It's Nikesha. Nikesha. Okay, Nikesha Elise Williams, guys, for stopping by for the 7 Daughters of Dupree. If you have not checked it out yet, check it out. If you have, because so many people, guys, it's viral right now. So definitely go and grab it. Leave your comments, leave your reviews. Miss Williams, you're welcome back anytime. I thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Kudos to you. We thank you for tuning in to this episode of Author Interviews with Jazz and Prose. I'm your host, Sai. We had Miss Nikesha Elise Williams here today for the 7 Daughters of Dupree. Go and check it out, guys, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.